All kings share one thing in common, an overwhelming ambition that drives them to claim the throne. Without it, they would never ascend to power, nor survive the storms of betrayal, conspiracies, and relentless challenges that come with ruling. But ambition, when left unchecked, can twist into obsession. And once that happens, morals fade, principles are abandoned, and the ends begin to justify the means. Imu seems to be the very embodiment of this kind of ruler, a sovereign who recognizes no limits, no taboos. Her thirst for domination pushed her to seek power by any means necessary, even if it meant turning to the dark arts or forbidden forces long associated more with destruction than creation. Now, let's talk about King Harald, the former ruler of Elbaf. His story carries eerie parallels. Once a proud king of the giants, Harald made a controversial move. He opened the gates of Elbaf to an unprecedented alliance with the world government, a move that flew in the face of generations of tradition, as the giants had always rejected servitude and clung fiercely to their independence. But Harald wasn't like the kings before him. He believed this alliance could transform Elbaf, break its isolation, and lead it into a new era. On the surface, it might have looked like a bold political maneuver, but the truth might be far darker. The world government doesn't act randomly. They play the long game. Decades of failed attempts to sway the kings of Elbaf finally found success in Harald, a king willing to compromise. And here's the chilling part. What if the reward offered wasn't just political leverage, but immortality itself? There's a strong theory suggesting that Imu-sama personally tempted Harald with the ultimate prize, eternal life, and in chasing that promise, he doomed his entire kingdom to be absorbed into a much larger scheme, one that only serves Imu's insatiable ambition, an ambition that knows no restraint and has no mercy for identity, culture, or pride. And this is where the story turns into betrayal, one that forever stained King Harald's legacy. Not just a fleeting mistake, but a descent into becoming a puppet for powers far greater than himself. The corruption didn't start with the alliance. It started years before, when Harald made the fateful decision to marry a woman from outside Elbaf. Not a giant, not one of their kind. Rumors whisper she was a descendant of the celestial dragons, those who see every other race as beneath them. And the people of Elbaf, they never accepted her, not because of prejudice, as some would claim, but because they saw the deeper truth. This wasn't love. It was infiltration. It was a political maneuver cloaked in romance. And the one who paid the price, their son, Hadruddin, born into a legacy tainted by suspicion and scorn, he grew up as an outcast, mocked not just by society, but by his own half-brother Loki, who saw in him not a sibling, but the living symbol of betrayal, a stain on their bloodline, a reminder of how one king's ambition could lead a whole race to the brink of losing everything. Over time, the threads began to unravel, revealing that this marriage wasn't born from love, but part of a much larger scheme, a scheme that perhaps was orchestrated by none other than Imu-sama herself. The union was likely a calculated move to forge a bloodline link between Elbaf and the world government, not through war, but through lineage and marriage. It was a silent invasion, not with armies, but with ancestry. One of the most chilling elements of this story is the mysterious death of Loki's mother, the first queen of Elbaf. She died under suspicious and unexplained circumstances, and shortly after, rumors began to spread that her son was cursed, a label that seemed far too convenient. There was no logic, no proof behind branding a child with such a fate, which raises serious questions. Her death may not have been due to illness or accident. It may have been deliberate. There are two prevailing theories. Either Hadruddin's mother orchestrated the murder, removing her rival to secure her son's future, or the world government itself, experts in silent assassinations, eliminated her to make room for the woman they had chosen to infiltrate Elbaf from within. Either way, King Harald's betrayal wasn't just political, it was personal. It began not in his court, but in his bedchamber, and it crept all the way to the throne. By the time he realized what was happening, he was a king of a kingdom that no longer belonged to him, a kingdom that no longer even resembled the Elbaf he once ruled. And this is the core of the betrayal. The reason why King Harald isn't remembered as just another misguided ruler, but as a traitor to Elbaf's values, its heritage, its soul. He sold out the pride of the giants for empty promises of power and eternal life. And here's the most damning proof: the magic circle in his castle. That circle wasn't ornamental. It wasn't decoration. It was a forbidden sigil, one that could only exist with permission from the highest authority in the world, Imu herself. These symbols aren't handed out freely. They mark total submission. They signify a pact with the most dangerous force in existence, the holy holy knights. Whether Harald was one of them, or simply a puppet taking their orders, the truth is clear. He had aligned himself with the shadows, and eventually, as betrayal always does, the consequences surfaced. What happened inside King Harald's castle wasn't a political coup. It wasn't a family dispute. It was an all-out war, a reckoning, and it forced Prince Loki to rise, not as a son confronting his father, but as a warrior facing a demon, because by that point, King Harald wasn't the man his people once knew. He had become something else, something monstrous. His mind, no longer his own, his body, a vessel of darkness. Under Imu's control, like we've seen with Dorian Broggie in the present day, Harald's transformation was not forced. It was willing. He chose to surrender. He wanted the power, and that decision stripped him of his humanity. What ruled Elbaf in those final days wasn't a king. It was a beast driven by shadow. And so, Loki did what had to be done. He didn't kill for power. He struck down his own father to save his people. It was a moment of tragedy, of sorrow, of rage. But it was also the end of an era, the fall of a king who chose darkness, the rise of a new age, one shrouded in uncertainty, but forged in the blood of those who dared to say no to the devil, even when the devil wore a crown. And the final nail in the coffin of King Harald's betrayal, the moment that confirmed every doubt, every suspicion, came from the mouth of Imu-sama herself in the previous chapter. With chilling detachment, she uttered the words, "Had Harald not failed, we would have seized Elbaf long ago." This wasn't a passing remark. It was a confession, a rare, undeniable truth. King Harald wasn't merely a pawn. He was a designated agent, entrusted with a mission that could shift the balance of the world. The subjugation of Elbaf, the one land that had resisted the grip of the world government for centuries. In that single line, everything became clear. The magic circle in his castle wasn't there by chance. His marriage to an outsider wasn't romantic impulse. It was strategic placement. Every step Harald took served a greater blueprint, a dark orchestration to break the isolation of the giants and chain them to Imu's banner. But the plan didn't fail because Harald had a change of heart. It didn't collapse because of rebellion or political upheaval. It was destroyed by his own son, Loki, a prince who, despite his personal flaws and inner turmoil, stood firm when it mattered most. Loki, often dismissed for his impulsiveness, proved to be far more perceptive and far braver than anyone gave him credit for. He saw what no one else dared to admit, that his father had betrayed their people, that the man who once wore the crown had opened the gates of Elbaf to ruin. Harald was no longer king. He was a vessel of poison, an instrument of the void. Loki's decision wasn't vengeance. It was deliverance. He didn't strike to claim the throne, but to protect the soul of Elbaf. With Harald's death, Imu's elaborate plan crumbled. Years, perhaps decades, of quiet manipulation, covert planning, and strategic breeding all turned to dust in an instant. And that's why Imu spoke with quiet fury, not simply because she lost a loyal asset, but because her dream of conquering Elbaf was undone by the one person she never anticipated, the son of the traitor.